Hey, thanks for joining us this week for This Week in Evansville. I'm Johnny Kincaid. Janet Douglas is with us this week.
Here, yay.
And Janet's going to hang out because we're going to talk about some topics that are really of interest to Janet and really should be of interest to you as well.
Yeah.
You know, we've got this big mayor's election. All of the city offices are being voted on: city council, mayor, city clerk. Early voting is going on, and so right now is the time to talk a little bit about this campaign season, because I've heard some predictions that say that we may see turnover in maybe 3 of our city council seats. Certainly, it's possible that the first ward may flip back over to Republican. Ben Trockman has been in that seat, and no telling what's going to happen there in what has traditionally been a high Republican district. Second ward is really going to be an interesting race.
Yeah.
They actually redistricted the second ward to actually carve in some additional Democrat areas into the second ward, because in the last city election, Missy Mosby only won re-election to that office that she's held for a long time by 16 votes, I believe it was.
Yeah, very few.
Smallest of margins. So that's going to be one to watch to see if there's a change in the second ward there, and I think it's kind of a jump ball in the council at-large seats. Those are all kind of going to be up in the air a little bit here. So there's a lot to watch for in those city council races, and it's my goal to get the city council people all before the election to have a little conversation with us. Yeah. Mayoral candidates. This is, oh my gosh, this is going to be the most unusual mayoral race in Evansville's history.
Right.
I truly believe that. If you had talked to anybody back at the first of the year, they would have said Evansville's going to have its first female mayor. Mm-hmm. And it would have been an absolute, and everybody would go, yep, you're right, because it was all women running. Right. And then Michael Dougherty came in as the Libertarian candidate, and people were still saying, we're definitely going to have a female mayor.
Right.
Because nobody, traditionally, third party or off party candidates don't usually draw that much vote, somewhere in the 5 to 10% range. Well, Dougherty has been working like crazy on this election. Yeah. He seems to be resonating with a lot of people, especially conservatives, on his appeal. So it's entirely conceivable that when all the votes are counted, our next mayor may win that seat with 35% of the vote. Mm-hmm. When has that ever happened? Right. And when have we ever seen a libertarian that'll probably be anywhere from 25% to 35%, kind of depending on who shows up, right? That's the biggest thing, is who actually makes it the polls.
But he has a fresh message.
He does.
His message is nothing like what we're hearing from all the other candidates. And he's telling us what we want to hear.
He is.
The question is, can he do it?
Well, he's the other thing with Dougherty is he's the first candidate for mayor since I've been in Evansville that I really felt was projecting a vision for the city.
Exactly.
I've just seen candidate after candidate run for the office, and they give these little vague generalities, and he's coming in and saying, "Here's what we need to do," and he's very specific about it, and he talks about the finances of it. How are we going to pay for things? He talks about where we're at now. He keeps doing these Freedom of Information Act requests to the city, and they don't like him right now.
No.
But the people who have to produce those documents for him are not really pleased. But the fact is, he's getting some truths out there.
Exactly.
$1 billion in debt right now for the city. And we're still talking about all of these other big works projects that are over the horizon for the city, and a matter of how do we pay without getting into creative financing.
So you're saying we're $1 billion in debt, and now we're looking for more money to do all these other projects.
We're having to get really creative about it, because that's why we're leasing streets. Is so that we can spend $9 million on improvements that nobody thought to budget for the Ford Center downtown.
Okay, so I'm going to ask, because I know there's going to be viewers that are going to say, what do you mean leasing streets? What in the world?
Okay, it's really beyond my comprehension as well. The plan that the city council came up with is, you have different arms of government. And so we have a couple of different economic development groups that have different purposes. So one that is, and we're kind of tapped out on resources in some other places, right? So we take the one who's got good credit. We're going to put it all on our good card. You ever done that? And they actually sell the bonds, right, for $9 million. And then another, to justify it all, the part of government that oversees the stadium will then lease streets from the other government entity, so they can. It's all weird and
it makes no sense.
It sounds like a flim-flam thing. It sounds like somebody's worked up a great con, but it's how the city's going to pay for that, because nowhere in the history of that arena did anybody ever stop to say, oh, software gets outdated, equipment breaks down, and we need to replace things. Nobody thought of putting that into the budget, so we're stuck there. Right? It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. Fortunately, 2 city council people voted no on that proposal, and that was Ron Bean, who's Republican candidate at large, and Missy Mosby, who's the Democrat candidate in the 2nd Ward. If Missy were sitting right here, I would say, at least on one thing, you have enough common sense to vote the right way. Because we don't agree on a lot of things, but on those things that we do agree on, it's usually something pretty big. And this is really a big deal that nobody in the city really understands.
Well, it makes you wonder where they got the idea, like from a larger city, that it works. And I don't know how it's going to work, because it just doesn't make any sense that they're pulling money from one account to go in another account, but we're going to rent you a street so that you can put money in this bogus account. It just doesn't make good sense of good government, Johnny.
Right. It's not good government. It's
so Evansville residents, you need to begin to ask questions about these things as we go forward, because these are the things that we as residents should be not only questioning, but holding them to their promises of even why they ran and how they were going to take care of you and I. And now it looks like even we're going to be paying for a lot of that as well.
Every single time that somebody from the government says, we want to build a new shiny thing, we want a new penguin display.
Yes.
We absolutely need to redo our water and sewer system. So we know that expense is kind of baked in the cake. We've got to deal with that. But every time that there's a new shiny object that makes somebody in the city go, oh, I know, we ought to build this. You've got to stop them and ask them, where will the money? Yes. How do we pay for it? That has to become the bottom line on all of these decisions, because that's how we got $1 billion in debt, is by continuing to decide we need new things. They're not needs, they're wants. We want new things, and we're not willing to wait to get them. Instead, we think we need them right now.
So I know we don't have the stats in front of us, but how did we get to a billion? You said $1 billion in debt. How in the world did we get there?
We keep selling bonds.
Okay.
Okay, so it's every time a project comes up, you fund it with bonds. Now we have money coming from the casino, and we always everything that comes up, we always say, well, we'll pay for that out of casino
The
funds.
casino, right?
Well, guess what? At some point, the casino is going to find itself no longer able to be competitive.
Right.
It's kind of the natural life cycle of things, right? When that casino is no longer competitive, and you've been depending on its money for all of this time, what do? How do you deal with a major reduction in that revenue stream in the future, and you have all of these bonds that you're trying to pay back? The simple fact is we can't rely on that money. We've got to live within our means. It's kind of like at home, you know.
Right.
If you burn up all your credit cards buying all the stuff you like or want, then you're not going to have money for the needs down the road. So we've got to get that under control.
And we need to hold our leaders accountable
Exactly.
because they are taking the city into even greater debt.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't wake up and begin to push back, we're going to look like, if I can just be real bold and you can like edit this out, we're going to look like Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And keep going and keep going. Somewhere, somebody has to like say, this is enough.
And so that people kind of understand where I come from on all of this, I moved around a bunch before I came to Evansville. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest in Washington State, moved to California, moved from there to Nevada and lived in Reno for a while.
You've been everywhere.
Oh, there's a place to live.
No.
Got my first sense of Midwest values when I moved to Oklahoma City, and then from Oklahoma City wound up moving here. So yeah, I've been around a little bit. And I arrived in Evansville in 1987. In fact, it was October of 87. And this is what happens when you get old. You start, reminiscing a whole lot more about things. And I'm kind of in that mode
old.
anymore.
I'm not.
So arrived here in October, and within a month, I knew that Evansville was home. I knew that this is where I wanted to stay, and I wanted to plant myself here. And no matter what happened, I was determined that this was going to be. There was something in the atmosphere here. There was something about the people here that made me say, "Man, I really like this place."
Right.
And a buddy of mine from who now lives in Florida, Mike Harvey, who we used to bring into town for different events. And Mike is just the greatest guy in the world. I love him. And Mike would come in, and we brought him in for the fall festival one year. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the fall, at the end of his stay, he looked at me and he said, Evansville has something about it that you don't find anywhere else in the country. And he said, it's not tangible. You can't put your hand on it, but there's something here. And he's always felt that way about the community. I tried to convince him to move here for a while. But he kind of likes the Florida weather. Go imagine that.
Right.
But there is something about Evansville.
Right.
And what I've noticed, though, in my time here is that there's been a gradual change in things. Mm-hmm. That and the way that things change is that you wake up one morning and you go, wait a second, 20 years ago, we were doing this, and now all of a sudden, well, it wasn't all of a sudden. It happened gradually over time. Things changed, and I think we're kind of in that boat in Evansville.
We are there.
And it's time to figure out what things we want to grab a hold of, and I have, man, I'm gonna tick off some former mayors in this city right now. But
go ahead.
I have not seen a mayoral candidate come through with real true vision for the city. Nobody has said, this is where Evansville's going. This is they've come up with projects.
This is how I'm going to take you there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lead us.
Right. And I just haven't seen that in people. And I've been through several administrations. Frank McDonald Jr. was mayor when I first came to town, and we had Russell Lloyd, and we've had Jonathan Weinzapfel, and we've had after John, and then of course Lloyd Winnicky. Mm-hmm. And the vast majority of time, if you ask the mayor about the power of the veto from a mayor, right? They say, "Oh no, we don't do that here.
No, we don't do that here.
We instead we sign what the city council passes," mm-hmm. and that's. I remember very, very well in one particular case where I was working on trying to get something passed, and I sat down with Jonathan Weinzapfel at the time, and he said, "Look, so whatever you can get the city council to pass, I will sign it.
I'll sign it."
And he said, "It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter whether it's a weak law or a strong law. I'll sign it, whatever they pass." So that's been what we've dealt with. So as we move toward the future, as you're looking at this election that's going on now, the thing I want to urge people to do is instead of looking at the flowery statements that people make about, well, I've lived here, I love it here, I did this, and I love that, and we're a great place to live. Yes, you're right, we're a great place to live, yeah. But without that statement of how we maintain that or how we get better,
it's not there.
Don't look at that and go, we deserve better, because we do deserve better.
Right.
See, you deserve better. You get up in the morning every day and just accept whatever it lays out in front of you, instead of waking up in the morning and saying, I deserve something better than this.
Right.
And when it comes to our city and who's running our city, overall, you deserve better vision. You deserve the candidate who's going to lead the city, as opposed to the person who is going to continue to try to pull consensus together, because consensus does not usually get you to a vision. Consensus gets you what works for the majority of people in the consensus station.
In the consensus
in
group.
Session, yes.
In the group.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny, it's funny when you talk about how long you've been here. I think we came here in 89, so we were right behind you. And I can agree and attest, and I think even our viewers would agree, that Evansville was bubbly. It was family. Mm-hmm. It was almost that baseball, apple pie, hot dogs. I mean, it was family. And it's a transient city. Everybody that comes in usually come in for jobs. That's why we came. That's why you came. But instantly you become part of this city family, and something shifted in that over the last years. And I do believe it's because we've not had that leadership. And obviously we all have busy lives and we go on with our lives, and then suddenly we're old, and then we realize, wait a minute, something's missing. But it really is coming down to, we need to ask all of these folks that are running for mayor, what is your vision and how are you going to get us there? And instead of giving us a blanket statement, we should be asking, where is that money coming from? Okay, well, we're going to rent spaces on the streets. Okay, how does that work? We have to push the narrative, because we are the citizens that live here, and we should have a voice in what's going on. And this is where I'm hoping in this election that more residents will begin to get out and begin to ask questions, and even call and set up meetings with these folks that are running for office, because we've got to have answers. We can't just have that blanket statement and hope it works this time, because we've not really seen that work in the previous years.
What do you want to do, and how do you pay for it?
Exactly.
Those are the big questions. And, crime is one of those areas that people are, the mayoral candidates are all talking about crime. But I got to tell you, there are problems here in Evansville. And what's at the root of the problem, I don't know. But what I do know is that we have an overall violent crime rate here in this city of 7.4. That's seven out of every. That rate is based on every 1,000 people, right?
And how many
So
approximately? We have, 170,000, I believe, roughly.
In the city, it's more like it's closer to 115, somewhere in there. But still 7 violent crimes per 1,000 residents. Do you know what the violent crime rate is because we've talked about the fact that if you go into rural areas, it's going to be really, really low. We're much higher than the state average. Indiana State, as a state, is 3.14 violent crimes per 1,000 residents, and Evansville is 7.44.
So Evansville
is double the state.
My goodness.
In violent crime. And we're on a par with Indianapolis, which Indianapolis is 7.6, or no, 7.6 something. A little bit higher than Indianapolis on the violent crime rate. So, there's obviously...
We have a problem.
Yes, exactly.
In our city.
And it's something we've got to deal with. When you look at certain crimes and you compare them to the national rate, in murders, we have a rate of 0.16 per 1,000, okay? Nationally, it's 0.07 per 1,000.
Wow.
So we had, as I believe, and my numbers may be off by one or two, but we had 19 murders in 2021. Last year, 2022, we had, I believe, 24 murders.
My goodness.
And I can't explain why that's the case.
But you're saying the stats show that we're higher crime than Indianapolis?
The rate, the number of violent crimes per 1,000 people is higher here than in Indianapolis.
But it's really bad in Indianapolis.
Yes.
But you're saying it's really bad here.
It's bad here. And again, it's one of those things that you have to love about Evansville is that everybody wants to look at the positive. Everybody wants to look on the good side of things.
Yeah.
I would go to school board meetings years ago when Phil Shostall was our superintendent of schools, and you would never hear anybody mention a problem existing anywhere in the school corporation. They had a 5-minute good news report where they would share all of the positive, and they should. But they also need to acknowledge the fact that there are places where improvement is needed. In Evansville, we tend to sweep the negative under the rug and say it doesn't exist, and it does exist.
We've got to face it.
We really do.
We've got to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
The residents, we have to rise up, begin to ask questions, and how can we get involved as residents?
Now, and this is a problem. The crime rate growing in 2021, 2022, and probably this year as well. That's not isolated to Evansville. It's a national issue. You're seeing that exact same spike happening in city after city all across our country. So it's not just here. But Evansville is our home, for crying out loud. And instead of us ignoring the problem, we need to take it head on.
Yes.
Because and part of the solution is that we've got to bring the staffing level in the police department back to the level that it should be at. We've seen.
Can we afford that?
Can the
city afford it?
Okay. Budget items. Number 1, police department. Number 2, fire department.
Right.
Right. The public safety things are what government is supposed to focus on.
Exactly.
And so those should be the absolute top priorities. And getting those and the problem is, in today's competitive world, you've got every police department in the country having the same problem.
Right.
So they're all trying to steal officers away from other departments and everything. But we've got to make the investment here to make sure instead of raises for the mayor and the city council and other city executives, we should be instead looking at how much of that money we can sweep into making the pay fair and equitable for police and firemen, and the whole issue of public safety, and how we make Evansville a safer place to live. Do not write my name in on your ballot for mayor. I will not serve. Just in case anybody was stupid enough to think about that, I just wanted to make sure that you knew not to do that. Because, you'll be wasting a vote then. There is no wasted vote until you write my name in on the ballot. But, we've got work to do here, and we just have to jump in and do it. I mean, that's just it. Property crimes in Evansville, our crime rate is 36.71 property crimes per 1,000 residents.
36.
And car thefts. Where did I find car thefts?
Yeah, lock your cars. We learned this, and we were like, make sure my car's locked. Literally.
Let me see if I can. I've got it. I know it's on here. There are sites, and when you go on the web, there are some sites that will say things like, Evansville is the third most dangerous city in the state of Indiana. There are websites out there saying that about us. There are some sites that do grades, letter grades for the city. Evansville on those sites has a D to D minus.
I saw that. And back in the day, it used to be, and not so long ago, don't drive through Gary, Indiana.
Yeah.
At dark or at night. Don't even go there during the day. But now, I believe we're even, the statistics show that we're even worse than Gary. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry for Gary, but I'm just saying it makes no sense. Evansville, this beautiful little city that we have, that we obviously are clueless to what's going on. We have real issues. I'm going to go back for a moment to go forward, but you were speaking about the police officers. Are they not able to find any because of the pay rate, do you think? Or is it because, like every other city, their hands are tied, so they can't really be police officers? Is that part of the issue as well?
I think that for the most part is that police officers have taken such a beating
exactly
in the public eye. The combination of that, competitive pay, and other factors, just is a very stressful job. And
after all, they do put their lives on the line for you and I. So
recruiting's been hard.
They should make a little more than $40,000 a year.
Yep. Absolutely should. Here is the number on car thefts.
Okay.
450 cars stolen in Evansville in 2021. 450 cars. That's mind-blowing.
It is mind-blowing.
For little old Evansville. And this was so top of mind for Janet and I, because we get together with folks for prayer on Tuesdays at noon here at Citygate, and so that prayer group recently went through these statistics on crime, and we're just kind of shaking our heads from the conversation that we had there.
Well, it just goes back to, if you don't know, you don't know. And that's part of what we're trying to do, even on this program, this broadcast. We want you to know what's going on. Maybe you don't have time to sit at your laptop and do what we're doing, not that we do, but we're really feeling a pull to get the truth out to the Evansville residents and even the surrounding region, really, because there are things going on in our cities that I would almost venture to believe that as you learn they're going on, it's going to be a problem for you and your family. And this is one of them. We need to know what to do. We need to hold our constituents accountable to what they say they're going to do, and we need to push the envelope on getting more police officers. We need to be the voice that God has given us to be here in our city, to be a better city, so that when people do come here, they want to stay, like you and
Exactly.
I. We didn't leave. So
about time
Lots
to
more to
wrap up
come.
here. Yes, much more to come. And we'll be putting candidates on the hot seat on these issues as well. So a couple of quick hits of things from this week in Evansville that I want to share before we leave here. First is, recently there was a mega fentanyl bust here in Evansville that I think was like 60,000 pills or something to that
Big.
effect, just monstrous. So if you think that, the fentanyl crisis is just a national thing or it only happens in other places, no, and no.
Right.
The fentanyl is here, and we just have to be
And
aware
people are
of that.
dying. Kids are dying.
Exactly. In fact, there was a baby recently
Right.
here in Evansville. Also, they recently arrested 2 teenagers for possession of a firearm on school property. So in case you think, the gangs here are wannabes, or there's not a gang problem in Evansville. You got 2 dudes going to the school property, and they're armed. They've got a gun with them in the car.
There are several gangs here. We'll talk about that in the future, but don't underestimate. There are gangs here, and they are ruling a lot of the cities.
Yep.
Or a lot of the streets in the city.
Yeah. A couple of things that are coming up to the city that you might also have an interest in, and I certainly find these things fascinating. First is that the first annual witchcraft market is going to be happening on Small Business Saturday here in Evansville. I don't want to talk about the time or the location because I don't want to give them that much more publicity. But I remember going to a psychic fair one time. We sat and prayed for people at a psychic fair. It was kind of fun.
Yes.
But I'm just kind of blown away at this coming. And they're specifically targeting that Small Business Saturday, which I think is really interesting. There's a 3-corner pagan circle that's going to be happening in December. I don't have a lot of details on that yet.
We will, though.
Recently, there was a speaker at USI that I'll share with
let's
you.
go there real
quick. Her name
quick.
is Stephanie Deig, and she was there to talk about diversity issues and yada yada. But I really thought it was very interesting because I was reading the information on what she was going to talk on, and it said she did this, and then the next sentence said, and they graduated from, and I went, what? Wait, they? Her pronouns, I know I've heard of people using thee and they or them and they, right? But she uses she and they as her pronouns, and it makes me absolutely crazy with that. So,
Are there more than one of her to be the they?
There is only the one, the only, and So I just
it's crazy.
It's just nuts. And then the other thing, and I'm excuse me while I'm trying to find the actual information on this, so then I tell you right, because we have coming up to Evansville.
Yes.
The creator of the 1619 Project. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the 1619 Project,
get familiar.
Yes, because this is actually wound up. It's been a big controversy nationally, and has showed up as a curriculum in some schools. The 1619 Project is basically kind of focused on the ship that came bringing 30 slaves to America in the year 1619, and thereby setting up our system of slavery and that lasted for 250 years. That is correct, but they're saying basically that the United States was founded on this foundation of slavery, and if you read the founding documents, That's not what they say at all. But the article, the person who conceived the 1619 project is Nicole Hannah Jones, staff writer for the New York Times Magazine.
Well,
she's coming to Evansville as the keynote speaker for the Evansville-Vanderburgh County Human Relations Commission annual dinner and Mayor's Celebration of Diversity Awards. That's a mouthful. What an event. All right. This is October 27th at Old National Events Plaza, and 75th anniversary of the Human Relations Commission in Evansville. Wow, I'm just surprised that she was brought in as the keynote on this.
Well, there you go. We've drifted so far off the path of Evansville as a whole, and obviously it coincides with everything that's going on in the nation. But this is Evansville.
Yeah, Evansville indeed. Her hometown is Waterloo, Iowa. By the way, you asked about that earlier. So
yes, I did.
Her book on the 1619 Project is published by Penguin Random House, and their statement says that when those 30 enslaved people from Africa arrived in Virginia in 1619, their arrival led to the barbaric and unprecedented system of American chattel slavery that would last for the next 250 years. This is sometimes referred to as the country's original sin, but it is more than that. It is the source of so much that still defines the United States.
So I'm all about learning history and knowing history, but this isn't the history that I learned in school. This isn't any, as far from any truth that I believe I learned growing up. And even, why are we still talking about, I mean, I know we need to teach truth, like never forget our history, which is what I believe a lot of people are trying to do, is change our history. I'll just leave you with that thought.
Well, okay, here's the thing. I absolutely 100% say, yes, we should teach about this ship full of slaves that came to America in 1619. Absolutely. Where it gets off course is when it starts becoming the great criticism of America that we have never been a just nation. We are
horrible country.
We are so in the wrong, and always have been, and probably always will be. See, when you teach that, then how do you expect to have young people decide to participate in the election process? I mean, how do we not have people just staying home in droves because this country's all screwed up anyway? Right?
Well, and when you teach when we teach these things to our young people, really it teaches them to hate America. Mm-hmm. It really does. Yeah. And we're seeing that across the nation, obviously, which takes me to this, and I know that you're going to shift in a minute, but one of the things that we're doing here at Citygate, and we're going to continue doing it, is we have started a Constitution Alive class.
Yes,
that's what it is. Yeah. It's a class. We've started that, and I'm taking it, and I'm blown away by what I've forgotten in high school, but truly what it's making me even more aware of is what's being taught, what has been being taught even in the last 20 years of school, in high school, and even in the colleges. Guys, there are so many things. We're so far off base of what America was founded on. And I would encourage you, you don't have to come here and take this class, but we are going to do a biblical citizenship, I believe is next. And it's like an 8 or a 10-week course, but you can get all of this online as well. But we need to know, and we need to teach our children and our grandchildren what America, it's really not a bad country to be from, Johnny.
No. And the, I mean, it's in our founding documents, it says that we want to move toward a more perfect union. It never said that we are perfect or that we'll actually reach that perfect ideal. but we continue to make progress and move toward it. And that's kind of the bottom line to that. I would encourage anybody, you can get these a Constitution that fits in your pocket.
Yes.
Some of these bills that get passed in Congress, you need a cart covered completely up with and stuffed full of paper in order to just one bill.
Right.
But our entire Constitution that our nation is founded on can fit into your shirt pocket.
Little booklet.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
With that, we're going to wrap things up. Be sure to click the like button, subscribe. That's the best way to find out when a new episode is coming up. Share, let people know about us. Comment as well. And we're glad that you're here.
Yeah.
Thanks
what do you
for
want to
joining
hear
us.
about? Give us your ideas, what you want us to bring to the table. We'll do it.
Always happy to hear your input. Thanks for joining us for This Week in Evansville.